Well, it's time to head into another full midweek fixture list from the EFL Championship as match week 14 has arrived from the 24-25 season. It's a little bit of a difficult one because it spreads across Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and then match day 15 starts on Friday, so there isn't actually a day in between. So a quick caveat to say that we are going to preview and predict all 12 midweek matches today. However, we will return on Thursday for the match week 15 predictions before the West Brom Burnley game, as it's the only way it can be done. And we will judge 13 matches in your recap in the next match week. This week, we're only going to judge the first 11. But as always, we're going to go across all of the midweek fixtures. We'll give you our preview and scores. You guys do exactly the same. And I'll still score it overall against mine. That's the most important bit. As many of you know also, I've been out at 2 FA Cup games over the last 2 nights, so I've not seen a lot of Championship football, and I will apologise to Millwall and Burnley fans in particular, because I'm going to be judging your game pretty blindly. So this is a chance for you to get the upper hand on me, because I will not have the usual level of research. But for now, before we go and look ahead to match week 14, we've got to have a look back at a weekend of just bizarre scorelines. Basically, most of the outcomes were a surprise. A lot of the ones that could have gone either way, most of us predicted draws and got caught out, and there were just some ridiculous scores. So those who got the perfect score lines were the ones that won out. I got 7 points, starting with that perfect score on Friday night, the game I was at, Luton, West Brom, and Cardiff's late win against Norwich as well. I got a point for Leeds United's win against Plymouth, and then after that it was a disaster. However, it was a pretty tough match day for most people because, of course, a lot of the scores were unpredictable. Surprisingly, nobody had Watford to beat Sheffield Wednesday 6-2. But let me refer to my trusty bit of paper because those of you who matched me last weekend, Brian and David B on 7 points apiece. 4 of you just edged past me on 8. Teo, Darren, Swifty and Jake, who was the big winner on Sunday. He had 1-0 to Millwall against Burnley. 2 of you on 9, Paul and Gordon. Well done to both of you. And then the top 3 in third place, Nigel with 11. And joint first with 13 apiece, Steve and Andreas, a regular versus a newbie. And one of you, Steve, 4 perfect scores. Just shows that nobody got more than half of the predictions right in terms of outcome, but perfect scores ruled the day. So with that out the way, let's move on to a big midweek. It is match week 14, and it all gets underway on Tuesday night. And we start with the first of them, which is Bristol City versus Sheffield United. Bristol City, a side that have caused a lot of contention in the comments because I never know what to predict for them. A lot of you moaning when I picked them to lose 1-0, saying, well, we're unbeaten in 7, but equally, it had been 1 win in 6, and if you'd lost at the weekend, people would have been using a 1 win in 7 stat instead. So it's very hard to call. A lot of draws. I've mentioned it in the comments quite a lot the last week when responding. It's great that when the back's against the wall, that resilience has been there. I'm thinking of the second half against Leeds, the game against Borough. There's definite improvements there where other Bristol City teams have conceded so many late goals, so I've got to give credit. And away at Preston showed the other side of the game, which is a real ruthless edge in front of goal. 3 shots on target, 3 goals. Only had 5 shots in the entire match. Gave up possession quite a lot. Something we're seeing a bit more from Liam Manning's side this season. And actually that is a really positive sign. However, they're coming into a very tough game against Sheffield United, who bar those 2 very difficult away days at Borough and Leeds, just don't concede goals. They're the only 2 they've conceded in their last 8. They went away to Blackburn and did a very comfortable job on a side that had been brilliant at home this year. They didn't give away a shot on target. They dominated the match. And I have to say, probably alongside the top 2, look by far the best side in the Championship. And in fact, they'd be above Leeds without the points deduction. So a really tough game for both this because Bristol City, they are staying in games. Sheffield United just look like a machine against anyone other than the very top sides, or an unfortunate game against Middlesbrough. So I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline here. There's part of me that wanted to go for Sheffield United to nick it, but given the amount of draws Bristol City have had, I'm going to stick my neck on the line early with a 1-1 draw. It's worked for me the last 2 match days. Let's move on to the second game, which is Oxford United versus Hull City. Oxford starting to drift after that very good start at home and were defeated late on at home to Swansea City. It is becoming a long winless run. It's become a difficult spell. And obviously, although they got that consolation late in the match, they were second best for the most part. There were a lot of good chances at either end, but Swansea, you have to say, edged the match. And in the end, it was a very disappointing day for them because at home, they had been unbeaten. They had been really strong. And on this occasion, that run has gone. Hull City, on the other hand, have done what Oxford were a couple of weeks ago. They've become the 1-1 specialists. 3 in a row now, including a very disappointing one at home to Portsmouth at the weekend. A frustrating day for them. Didn't create bundles of chances, but that being said, 4 of them registered as clear cut. They dominated the ball. They did create a couple of chances where they could have won the game. But unfortunately, it's starting to look like a bit of an issue for Hull, isn't it? Not being able to have both. Yes, they've tightened up that defence in recent weeks, but it's come at the expense of goals. I guess they'll argue on another day they could have won that. One of many sides in the middle. It's a very tough game to call again. So given that both sides have had 3-1 all draws in the last 5, I'm going to go for another one. 2 in a row to start the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1 apiece. If we move on to the third game, it is Queen's Park Rangers versus Middlesbrough. QPR, again, 3 draws in succession. This time, a very decent one at home to Sunderland. They were in the game, and I know Joe Bellingham got sent off, and they would have fancied their chances to go on and win it. We've talked about their lack of cutting edge a lot. But you've got to give them credit. They're improving. They are starting to look a better team now. And even defensively, the last 2 against Burnley and Sunderland. To keep 2 clean sheets, definitely a positive sign. For Middlesbrough, I just don't know what to say. I know you have to write off this Coventry game a bit. The early red card was incredibly decisive. And then after that, Coventry were ruthless with their chances, something that doesn't often happen. Well, for either of those sides, to be fair. But after dropping those points against Norwich from 3-1 up with a penalty kick as well, to then lose 3-0 at home to Coventry, it all just feels like it's becoming a bit frustrating. It makes this game really hard to call. We know that Borough have had so many problems in front of goal. Take away that Norwich game, they don't score more than 1 in a game too often. And neither do QPR. So I think a bit like Millwall Burnley on Sunday, there are only 4 possible scores here. 0-0, 1-0 or 1-0 either way. And I'm going to stick my neck on a 9 and go for a huge result. QPR to get their second win of the season. 1-0 at home to Borough. The fourth game on Tuesday and the final 7:45 kickoff is Sheffield Wednesday versus Norwich. We've got to start with Wednesday. What on earth happened on Saturday? A second half capitulation, I think you have to call it. Watford in, look, fairly even game on paper. Sheffield Wednesday had some great chances, didn't take them. Watford were just ruthless against them, but you can't be conceding 6 at home. In any circumstance, you've got to tighten up at some point. And it's becoming a bit of a concern because they were just getting going, Sheffield Wednesday. They were starting to look good. And that's had a big hit on the goal difference. Makes them the 3rd worst defence in the league this season now. And after 2 really good displays away at Pompey, where they were strong second half, and against Brentford in the Cup. Bit of a concern for them, it must be said. They come up against a Norwich side who are poor away from home, and as we predicted, were beaten late by Cardiff. The circumstances will be incredibly frustrating as well, having been ahead in the 88th minute. They did basically what Borough did against them. They conceded a goal and then they fell apart. Late on, Cardiff City getting 2 and Norwich in a game where, for an away performance, they were actually relatively good on Saturday, ended up with no points. So, very difficult for them. No winning 4-0, only 1 in the last 6. Sheffield Wednesday, only 1 in the last 5. I have to go for a response for Sheffield Wednesday. The 2 performances before were better. We're not going to see 2 like that in a row. I'm going to go for Sheffield Wednesday to win in a battle of the teams that don't keep many clean sheets by 2-1 at Hillsborough on Tuesday night. Well, my live audience has departed, so let's hope the show's not that bad as Plymouth Argyle face Portsmouth, the Battle of the Peas at 8 p.m. And for Plymouth, it was a very tough day away at Leeds United. We predicted it would be. It's not a game that's going to define their season. I know there was a lot of stupid stats coming out about Rooney ball, no shots on target, 21% possession, but Leeds can do that to a lot of sides, and I wouldn't be worrying about that too much. However, they come up against a Portsmouth side that have struggled all season, obviously got that 1 win away at QPR, which is playing with me a little bit when it comes to this result. But this is a must-win for both at this stage of the season to get themselves away from danger and in one of those winnable games after both have had spells including difficult matches. Pompey actually got a decent point away at Hull, we mentioned it. They did have a threat on the counter, which they've looked more of a threat away from home, it must be said. But they gave up good chances again, and it's something Pompey have been doing all season. I even go back to the game against Luton where they drew 0-0 before our red card. We had 3 in 20 minutes. This game, Hull have 4 officially. They're giving up too many great chances, which is a big cause for concern. I've fluttered with this scoreline a little bit, to be honest. I initially went for 2-1 to Pompey, but I've changed my mind. I've bottled it. I'm going to go for a third draw of the Tuesday night matches. I'm going to go for 2 goals apiece because I don't think either side's great at the back. And if they concede one, we could end up with a crazy game, with both sides thinking they've got to win. So 2 apiece at home park. And the final game on Tuesday is between two sides that had an excellent Saturday afternoon. It is Swansea City versus Watford. We talked about Watford. Where did that come from? They've been woeful on the road for so long. People talking about cleverly out after Luton. They've gone and given Leeds a game after, then won the next two. 6-2 at Sheffield Wednesday. And I accept, yes, it's a game where everything they hit went in, including 2 penalty kicks. Aside from that, only one of the chances was listed as clear cut. There were 4 against them. On another day, they would have conceded 3 or 4. However, the result speaks for itself. It's a 6-2 win. It's a huge confidence boost. Really important after that big win at home to Blackburn to find a little bit of a waveform. And for all you want to say about Watford and the defensive record is joint 4th worst with Luton's, look, ultimately, they're in 5th place. It's been a very solid start to the season after a couple of turbulent years. For Swansea, almost a miracle to score more than 1 goal in a game. We mentioned the 5 blanks in a row before, but they got the win against Oxford United. They were good value for it as well. Again, gave away a late goal, made things difficult for themselves, but they got the win. And that was really important because they needed to start finding a threat. And ultimately, if they didn't start scoring soon, they couldn't just rely on that defensive record to hold them. Despite that, and despite the fact Watford had an emphatic scoreline at the weekend, I do think this is going to follow the general trend this season and be a low-scoring game. And I'm going to go back to Swansea being, well, a bit less exciting in front of goal. And Watford, look, it was a great result, but it is their only away win. And on the stats, it could have been a bit different, having not seen the game. I'm going to go for Swansea City to win 1-0, mainly because I don't want to go for too many Championship's favourite scorelines, but I know a lot of you will go for 1-1. I'm going to go for 1-0 Swansea, just to stick my neck on the line with a few of these games. Let's move on to the 5 Wednesday matches, starting with Blackburn Rovers versus Stoke City. Disappointment at home for Blackburn, who lost at home to Sheffield United by, well, a very comfortable performance from the visitors. Couldn't offer a lot in front of goal, no shots on target, not many set pieces, not many opportunities, had a bit more of the possession, but ultimately, Sheffield United, one of the best teams in the division. There's no shame in that. Is a worry, though, that they've not scored in 3 now, including 2 matches in a row at home. For Stoke, a really important win, a late one against Derby County. Ben Gibson getting that after the early opener. Again, not a brilliant performance, but they were just about the better side. And again, kept going late on, which is something we've not always seen when they've conceded an equaliser under Narcy Palak. I'm still not entirely convinced, but they are starting to score goals, albeit they're flying in at the other end as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game pans out. Will it be the low scoring? Because Blackburn, bar that Sheffield United game, have been very, very solid at home. Or will Stoke City find a bit of form away from home? Yet to win a game under their new manager. Yet to really look like winning a game. And they've not really scored many goals either. Bar that Southampton Carabao Cup tie. So I'm going to go for Blackburn to win this game. And I'm going to go for my odd scoreline of midweek. I know that Stoke are capable of it, but they're so inconsistent, as we mentioned countless times. If Blackburn get 1, Stoke come out, I think Blackburn could hit them on the counter. So I'm going to go for a bit of a weird scoreline here. I'm going to go for 3-0 to Blackburn Rovers against Stoke. The second game on Wednesday is Coventry City versus Derby County. Derby were the side beaten by Stoke thanks to that late goal. Probably didn't deserve anything out of the game. However, we mentioned it for them a lot this season. Their home form is what's going to decide their fate. They have got to try and find a way to start picking up points on the road. They did that at Oxford and Millwall, but not really looked like winning many matches away from Pride Park. For Coventry, back-to-back wins, that thrilling comeback against Luton, and then a brilliant result, taking advantage of being against 10 men for most of the game at Middlesbrough. They just seem to have Middlesbrough's number up there, don't they? Did it in a playoff semi-final a couple of years ago. A really good day for them, a really good week. And we mention it, Coventry always start slow, but now 6 points off the playoff, starting to score goals. It's all starting to come together, as it so often does for Mark Robins' side. Another lesson to many teams to be loyal with your manager. However, this game is quite tough to call. I think Derby will try and keep it solid, as we've seen in recent games. But Coventry probably have just too much. I'll go for them to nick it, not convincingly, but by 2-1 against Derby. Well, let's hope you don't spot the dodgy jump cut as we commit a first on this channel after 4 years of championship predictions. I completely forgot about a game until I was editing and realised it was a bit short. We've got the third game on Wednesday night, which is Millwall versus Leeds United. You can't say I'm nothing if not honest. It was a great result for Millwall on Sunday afternoon, a game I didn't get to see due to being out at an FA Cup tie. A 1-0 win against Burnley, restricting the visitors to just one shot on target as well. Really good signs from them. Not a lot of possession, but gritty, hard to beat, and the things that were missing a little bit at the start of the season. Millwall sneaking up the table now. Neil Harris doing a very good job. For Leeds, a comprehensive win at home to Plymouth Argyle at the weekend. It was done by half-time. It was domination, and defensively, they were incredibly mean. Didn't even allow a shot against them in the match, but just a vintage performance. And I stand by what I said at the start of the year. I know they're missing that clinical edge occasionally in front of goal, but when they're at their best, I don't think there's anyone in this division who can cope with Leeds. So as a result, I have to go for Leeds to win this one, but we've seen them have some tough days on the road. They battered Bristol City in that second half, but couldn't get the goal. They've had some frustrating away days already. I'm going to go for them to edge this one. Millwall don't score many, 4 in their last 6. If they win, it's by 1-0. This time, I think after 5 unbeaten, they're going to be on the flip side of that. I'm going to go for Leeds United to edge it by 1-0 at the Den. The 2 8 PM kickoffs start with a game I'll be at, possibly for the last time before I make my move up north. It is Luton Town versus Cardiff City, and for Luton, well, I'm going to mention this West Brom game. The first half was just a dreadful game of football. However, in the second half, Luton were much improved, created chances, looked to threat without really having many clear-cut chances on goal. Of course, there was a question mark about a handball, but on the balance of play, a draw is probably a fair result. Many more signs of encouragement at home, note, in the last 3 home fixtures. The only worry will be just 4 points picked up, but really important to see Amari Bell and Ted Mengi back in that defensive 3, and you saw the difference it made to how solid Luton looked compared to the Coventry and the Sunderland matches. For Cardiff, the brilliant spell under interim management continues. What a late comeback against Norwich City in a game where they probably were second best until the turnaround. However, they stayed in the game. They've got that defensive record improved. And to be fair, since Errol Baluk's gone, they've looked like a very different team. They started to have an attacking threat. They've scored 9 in their last 4, even including that blank at West Brom. But we've mentioned before, all of their big results have come at home. Away, it's been draws. It's been low-scoring games. So I'm going to go with my head on this one. I'm going to go for Luton to nick a 1-0 win. I think if Bell and Mengi are both fit again, a clean sheet is a possibility. It was a moment of magic that stopped that at the weekend. So I'm going to go for Luton by 1-0. A rare clean sheet. And for Cardiff, just a struggle in front of goal on the road. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that one. The final game on Wednesday night is Preston North End versus table toppers Sunderland. A frustrating day for Sunderland at QPR, though after the red card to Joe Bellingham, they'll probably be happy to take a draw away because it could have gone wrong. It could have been that game that fooled us all. We mentioned it last week, didn't we? You have to go for a Sunderland win, but it's the sort of game where the Championship just plays with you. They got a point though, good result on the road in the end. And for Preston, a worrying sign after that Carabao Cup defeat against Arsenal, a 3-1 defeat at home to Bristol City. Yes, their opponents were ruthless. They took every chance they had. For Preston, while they had lots of shots, they were half chances. They weren't creating much clear cut. Didn't get many set pieces. Didn't get many chances to just pepper the box with crosses. So it became a bit of a frustrating day for them. And defensively, not quite what we're used to, albeit that's because they're trying to show an attacking threat. It's 11 conceded in their last 4 matches in all competitions, 8 in 3 in the Championship. So that's something that's got to improve. I've just got a funny feeling about this one. Sunderland haven't been convincing on the road. I know they've won the Luton game and the whole game, but they weren't brilliant in those matches. And they've had a few where they've been turned over as well. But overall, it's been a great season. The unbeaten run continues. And I think it will on Wednesday as well. I'm going to chuck in a weird Championship's favourite scoreline here. I'm going to go for 1 goal apiece at Deepdale. And then the final game on Thursday, which is included in this prediction show, but will only be judged in the following one because it's on Thursday night. It is West Bromwich Albion versus Burnley. I mean, imagine ruining a whole match week and moving a game a day later. That's going to be lacking in entertainment based on what we've seen. For West Brom, they've scored 2 goals in their last 6 matches. It was a brilliant finish by Mazza against Luton, but they showed very little attacking intent aside from that. Cardiff, Blackburn games, they struggled to break teams down. Burnley have drawn 2 blanks in a row. Against Millwall, managed 1 shot on target. Again, I mentioned I was out on a Sunday afternoon, so I didn't get to see anything from this. However, a couple of the Burnley fans in our FM Discord said it's going to be a tough season with that lack of threat in front of goal on the road. So, after not being able to break down QPR, and with both of these sides out of form in front of goal, I go back to what I said for the last Burnley game. There's 4 possible scorelines. 0-0, 1-1 or 1-0 either way. And I'm going to go for the Baggies to nick it. They're overdue a win. They're good at home normally. Both of these defences have been magnificent. And although 0-0's a great shout, I'm going to go for West Brom to nick it. 1-0 at home to Burnley, which will be judged after the international break, along with matchday 15. With that out of the way though, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for in midweek. I've gone for a big surprise victory at home for Blackburn by 3-0 against Stoke. You've got to throw 1 or 2 against the stats as well. Championship's favourite scorelines in both of the 2 openers on Tuesday night, as well as for table toppers Sunderland on the road at Preston, and a thrilling draw at the battle of the bottom between 2 sides that probably need a victory in Plymouth and Portsmouth. Those are just my predictions for match week 14 though. Get yours in the comments below and let me know if you agree or disagree. If you beat or match my overall score for the first 11 matches, you will get a shout out in a recap on Thursday when we look ahead to match week 15, the final one before the international break. If you did enjoy this video, which was a little bit more quick fire, I don't want to pretend that I've seen loads of action. I haven't while I've been out at FA Cup games, so it's your chance to beat me. But if you enjoyed it, do chuck a thumbs up on it. Subscribe and turn that notification bell on to stay up to date with everything. There's clips from a couple of FA Cup games in the last day or so. I ended up at 2 that went to extra time and penalties. You can find them up in the eye above. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the midweek festival of Championship football. And we will be back on Thursday to look ahead to another big weekend. Match week 15's on the horizon. And I'll see you there for the usual predictions.